and you are running out and doing your own deliveries, your standards aren't that high, David. If
Rob Swineford, how are you, my friend?
I'm fantastic, David. How you doing this morning?
Oh, fantastic, fantastic. I'm really excited that you're on today. This audience that you're speaking to will be, for years, you're gonna be watching this. So no mistakes, brother, no mistakes.
No pressure. I feel very good about that, David.
You know, the way, Rob, the way you and I met is through our common friend, Brian Adams, and we're all creating at the same time and developing into our next career and just having a great time in communication and leadership. But what I know about you, Rob, is that you started from ground zero with your brother, knocking doors, building a business from the ground up to where you built it with close to 200, 300 people working for you and just turned it into a great business and sold it. So talk to us about your experience, how you decided to start a business, maybe the whole startup process, and then take us through how you built the people, how you hired them, and then really developed them to take the company to another level. Talk to us about that.
Okay, David, I appreciate that. For me, it really started, the idea came to me one day when I was working in a warehouse. I was working at a place called Hang 10 Slacks and Jeans. Do you remember the Hang 10 logo, the Hang 10 brand?
Yes.
Yeah. So this is back in the late 70s, and I was working in a warehouse, Hang 10 Slacks and Jeans, and I saw a coworker of mine get fired. And from my perspective, the management was completely unfair. And from my perspective, the management did not treat most of the people in the company with the respect that I thought that they deserved. And this light bulb went off in my head. It was pretty silly, all things considered, considering I was only about 22 years old and didn't have much of a resume of life experience. And this idea went off in my head that I'm going to have my own business. And when I have my own business one day, I'm going to treat people fairly. I'm going to treat people with respect. And that's pretty much where the initial idea came from.
That's fantastic. So talk to me about that. You had the initial idea, and then you're like, okay, I'm out. At what point did you make the decision? I'm going to launch this thing. And then what was your business? What business did you start?
Well, you know, that's the funny part, David, about, you know, when we get ideas and when we get a dream. I had this dream that I wanted to build a business. The only problem is I had no idea what kind of business. I had only a limited work experience at that time. I jumped around from job to job. I had quit college at that time. And so I went and I tried a few different business endeavors. I tried selling at the swap meet. I was in the garment business. I was in the furniture business as a wholesaler. These are small endeavors that I tried. Each one of them failed, quite frankly. And then finally, in the mid-80s, I was hired to be a salesman for a courier company, same-day delivery, a messenger service. Quite frankly, I knew nothing about it. And once I got into that business and I saw how that business went, I saw the potential for that business, especially in our market where we were in Orange County, California. And I knew right then, okay, this is the business I want to do. It's a simple business. I understand it speaks to me. I'm not a genius. So this simple stuff of just going from point A to point B, delivering packages on the same day basis, that really resonated with me. And so in 1989, in September of 1989, my brother and I launched our business.
That is fantastic. And you launched it going door to door. Tell us about that experience.
Yeah, the delivery service that we're talking about here, it's not like today. People, when they think about delivery, they instantly probably think about Amazon and delivering products to homes, but this is in the mid-'80s. This was business-to-business delivery. So we had to go out and get commercial customers. We didn't have any customers, we didn't have any employees, and so I went out knocking on doors, just door to door, every single day, cold calling, walking into their office, introducing myself, and telling them that we had a messenger service and we wanted to do their same-day deliveries. Now, I didn't let them know that the only driver I had was my brother sitting back in the office. I didn't tell them that, but I had to persuade them to give us a chance, and we just started from there.
That's fantastic. And at what point did you start to grow, and how did you select the people that you were hiring into your business, knowing that this is your baby, this is your pride and joy? How did you select your first employees to come and work with you?
You know, that's a great question. We had to build a fleet of drivers, and so we began to run an ad. I think at that time we just placed an ad in the Orange County Register, I believe is where we ran our first driver ad, and people began to respond. Quite frankly, when you are that little and you are running out and doing your own deliveries, your standards aren't that high, David. If somebody shows up and they say, well, they want to work, you pretty much say you're hired. And so in the very beginning, we basically qualified people upon their ability to know the area. Could they go from A to B? Did they know Southern California? Did they know the freeway system? And did they seem to like someone who would be responsible and show up to work every day? So in the beginning, David, we were just building a fleet. We were going to be the management team. We were going to run the operations, and the need to have managers or people with more experience would not come until later.
And then when you reached that point, how did you start to select the folks that were going to manage the everyday operations of the business, where you were bringing managers on and they started taking over some of that responsibility?
You know, that's a great question, and I know you are a leadership expert, and I have to confess that it's been 30 years. So 30 years ago, this is how much I knew about leadership, and if someone can't see me, I'm putting my fingers together really close. I didn't know anything about leadership. I knew about management. I had been a manager at different places where I had worked. I had been in charge of small teams of people, but I really didn't understand the difference between management and leadership. I know that you manage things, you lead people, right. And at that, frankly, I didn't understand that. I really, really didn't. In terms of how we qualified people, we used common sense in talking to them in terms of looking at their background. If they expressed to us that they had a work ethic, if they expressed to us that they could see a bigger picture. At this time, we had a 300 square foot office on the second floor near the John Wayne Airport at that time, near SNA. 300 square feet, 2 rooms, not exactly impressive. So we had a little fake potted plant in the corner, and we had a desk where they could sit down and fill out an application that I probably designed myself. So we didn't feel like we had a lot to offer except a vision. And that is that we thought we could build this. We thought the potential was unlimited. And so therefore, when we looked at people and asked, do we want to bring them to our team? We were looking for people with a work ethic, and then people that could see a vision, that if we all came in and really, really worked hard and stayed focused on one thing, I mean, it's not that hard, and that is delivering the package on time. That's it. We got to pick it up on time and deliver it on time. That's our job. If we could focus on that, we could build, we thought, a heck of a business. And so that's how we kind of chose people.
That's fantastic. Now, you have been a coach for years and years and years, and a very successful coach, I might add. So how did you utilize your skills as a coach in your business and building the team? Because you just talked about two main things that really resonate with me. One, that you were going to treat people right once you started your own business, and number two, teamwork. You're gonna find a way to make team. Do they vision, right? This vision that you had, can they buy into that greater vision and become part of this team to create something greater than something we haven't, just the vision, create what we're thinking about. So how did you implement those and kind of talk about your coaching history and come back and bring them together?
Well, first, let me talk about vision. The vision that my brother and I carried in our minds at that time, David, was very, very simple. It was our competitors. We had several major competitors in our market at that time. And I would literally, on my way to work, David, I would drive by their offices and I would look at their offices and I would see their big, beautiful offices. We had our tiny little 300 square foot office. They had buildings. There was one company in particular, I won't mention their name, that dominated the market at that time. So if you could imagine, at that time, we're just getting started. We're looking for our first delivery. One competitor around the corner from us was doing 300 deliveries a day. And another competitor in the same city was doing, I believe at that time, they were doing about 800 deliveries a day. So that was a big deal. I mean, for me to drive by those places, look at those places, see a parking lot full of cars, see employees going in and out, gorgeous offices, that was really important for me to have that in my mind that, you know what, that's where we're going. That's where we're going. And if we can simply do it better than them, this is a simple business, but if we can do it better than them, and that is make the buying experience more positive, be better on the phone, be better in person, stay focused on timeliness, stay focused on being professional and having a professional appearance, basically looking at what they're doing and saying, what can we do better? That was huge to us. And so that's the vision we kept getting off to our employees. And some of them had come from those companies. They had come from those companies and they said, you know, I worked over there and here's what I didn't like.
Right.
And we would listen really carefully to that and say, okay, I'm going to learn from that and I am going to implement that here. And so that was one of the ways that we really began to get the vision through our own heads and our vision through the other people's, the people that worked with us, their minds as well.
Nice. I lost your video feed there, Rob.
My phone is giving me a warning here. Am I back on now?
Yep, you're back on. You're back on.
Awesome.
So that's interesting because all the leaders I've talked to so far, they all talk about that one thing, listening to your people, because that's where you get your best ideas. And I love that concept. So talk to me about your coaching experience, because you're quite a successful coach and you actually speak to schools and talk to children about teams and team building and growth. Talk about that.
So we started our business in 1989. In about 1993, a dear friend of mine asked me if I would help coach her son's basketball team. At that time, I had one little girl, and so yes, I said I wanted to do that. I'd never done that before. I'd played high school basketball way back, and was a big basketball fan, but I had no coaching experience. And really, David, it's funny you bring that up because maybe I learned more during that period of coaching kids and how I could apply that to my business. I didn't bring that to the table when I started my business, as I mentioned. So when I started coaching kids, it was just my friend's son's basketball team. And at that time, that's when I discovered that I loved it. I loved the idea of being in front of people and trying to bring them together as a team and to coach them and encourage them and to ask them to see a vision of themselves that perhaps they couldn't see and maybe help them get there. So it started with fourth grade boys, and then as we built our family, each one of my children ended up playing basketball, not necessarily because they wanted to, but because I was their dad. And so when my eldest daughter became of age, she played basketball. Next was my eldest daughter, Kristen, played basketball first before moving into cheerleading. My second daughter, Brooke, who was the shortest person in our family and remains the shortest person in our family, she loved it. And she played basketball from fourth grade all the way through high school. And had a really positive experience. Later, my son would play basketball, same thing. He started in third grade, and he went all the way through high school. And then my youngest daughter, Brady, she played 1 year of basketball. So Kristen, Brooke, Sage, and Brady, they all played basketball somewhere along the lines. But in between then was a whole bunch of years of coaching basketball when my kids weren't playing, when they were doing something else. I kept coaching basketball. So in all, it was 19 years of coaching. Ended up at high school coaching boys junior varsity basketball, varsity assistant. And so in those 19 years coaching boys and girls, third grade to 12th grade, that's when I learned a lot of lessons. Really, my best lessons about leadership and building team came from coaching kids.
Fantastic. How did that serve you recognizing your players when you're coaching basketball?
In coaching basketball, some of the lessons that I learned with that is that everybody has to feel important. Okay, and one thing you see with youth sports, right, is kids quickly surmise very, very quickly who's got the skills and who doesn't have the skills. They're all in different stages of development, but in every single team, this kid can handle the ball well, this kid can shoot the ball well, and this kid over here is struggling. This kid is having trouble with everything. And maybe it's because as a basketball player, I was average at best. Maybe I became a good coach because I sat on the bench more than I was on the court. And so therefore I got to do a lot of watching. I was not one of the stars. And so I got to watch and I got to see what it felt like, David, to be on the bench. And here's something that I learned from my high school coach. I was on this basketball team that was really, really good. We were playing at the highest level of basketball at that time. In Southern California, the highest level you could play at was 4A at that time. There was 1A, 2A, 3A, 4A. We're playing the best high schools in all of Southern California. We're competing at the highest level, and we're succeeding big time. We are the league champions. We are 25-5 overall. We're advancing into CIF, but I'm a bench warmer. Okay, I'm a bench warmer. There are 10 guys on the team, and I'm like, depending on what was going on at the time, I'm number 7, I'm number 8, maybe I'm number 9. Okay. And so, but I'm coming to practice every day, David. Here's the thing. I'm coming to practice every day because every day we're going 5-on-5. We're playing full court 5-on-5. So I get to go against the guy whose job I'm trying to get, right?
Yeah.
His name is Mark, and he was the shooting guard. I'm trying to get his spot. So I'm competing like mad. Internally, I'm thinking I don't matter. Internally, I'm thinking I'm just a bench warmer. But something told me, bust your butt at every practice. Bust your butt at every practice. So one day, David, we're having, our coach brings us in, and he wasn't a real expressive guy. He brings us in, and he sits us down in this meeting room right outside the gym. And he just starts tearing into us. And we're winning all the time. He's tearing into us, and he says, you know what? I see you guys walking around campus. You guys think you are so wonderful. You don't talk to people. You wear your Letterman's jackets like you're big shots. He goes, and I watch how you treat these cheerleaders who are so nice to you, come to all your games, bring you gifts, and you act like they don't even exist. Who the heck do you think you are? I mean, he's tearing into the entire team. Everyone's head is down. And then he says something, David, that changes my entire life. He says, if everybody came to practice and worked as hard as Rob, we'd be undefeated. And instantly, he changes me. I'm thinking no one's even noticing who I am. I'm thinking I'm not making any contribution to this team because I'm on the bench. And he recognized this kid is busting his butt. This kid is working hard. Of course, I got a whole bunch of dirty looks from my teammates who looked at me. It's like, oh, yeah, thanks a lot. But to me, he changed everything for me. So as a coach, I always had an affection for that kid who wasn't the star. And to answer your question, I just tried to make sure that everybody knew that they had a role, that they were all important to me. I don't care if you were number 1 on the team or you're number 10 on the team. My job is to make you better. My job is to make you better. So you're all equal in my eyes in that regard, and you matter to me because you're part of this team, no matter what your skill set is.
Rudy Rudiger of high school basketball. Joe, Rob. That's the story that popped right into my head as you told me that story. Because Rudy's story was very similar, right? Showing up every day, busting his tail, getting no credit, wanting to quit, at least on the inside, right? But yeah, you make all the difference in the world by just showing up and giving it your all every single day. Man, I think that's a fantastic story. Rob. Thank you for sharing that. So when we're talking about communication skills, if you could leave emerging leaders with just your top three, just the top three tips for them in communication of what could make them more effective communicators as leaders, what would that be?
You know, every one of us has been to meetings, David, that have been a complete waste of time. And when I go out and teach communication skills to adults, when I'm not in front of kids and I'm teaching communication skills to adults, the 5 principles that I talk about are purpose, preparation, participation, pace, and persuasion. Those are the 5 things I try to remember in every meeting when I'm in front and I'm being a leader. And so the first thing is I state the purpose of the meeting. Okay, so if I'm going to talk to an emergent leader, in your communication skills, when you sit down, whether it's one-on-one or with your whole team or whatever it is, it's somewhere in the beginning, you have to state the purpose of the meeting. When I have brought people in to reprimand them, when they have done something and there's been a customer complaint and it's serious, and they don't know it, okay? They don't know it. They're not aware that they've done something that's made somebody upset. And so they get called into my office, and what I do is I start that meeting by saying, the purpose of this meeting is to determine whether or not you're going to remain employed here. Now, that's a powerful opening, okay? That's a powerful, and usually they sit up immediately, okay? They sit up. I'm not trying to scare them. I'm not trying to intimidate them. I'm not trying to be a jerk. I'm trying to be honest with them. I'm trying to be honest. You need to sit up and listen, because this is a very important meeting. So if I was going to talk to emerging leaders, I would say anytime you sit down with people, make sure that they understand the purpose of the meeting, okay? Second of all, make sure you're prepared for the meeting, man. Don't have a meeting, whether it's with 1 person or 400 people, make sure you're prepared. Make sure you have an agenda. Make sure you know what you want to accomplish. Keep a nice pace to the meeting. Stay on point during the meeting, during your conversation in front of your team. Make sure that remember, you're there to persuade. Okay, you have a purpose, and so you want them to leave that meeting, whether it's one-on-one or with 400, to do something. You want them to think differently or do something differently or to feel differently, then fulfill that purpose. But the main thing, David, the main thing is participation. That's the main thing. How many times have we gone into a meeting where the leader yapped for 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes? That is not effective. So what I try to teach people is get the people in the meeting to participate. Don't sit there and yap the entire time. Have a plan whereby, David, you can reach out to these people and get them to participate, because when there are more voices in the meeting, not just your voice, but other people's voice, that's how you really set a good pace to a meeting, is by having everybody contribute. It's difficult. You have to be good as a facilitator. You can't let the meeting get away from you. But if you can learn to develop as a communicator where you have the courage to allow participation, it gives you an opportunity to demonstrate your listening, because that's really what your team is looking for. One of the things your team is looking for is, are you a good listener? Well, when you allow them to participate, then you can follow up with what they just said, and you can say, like David said, or like Mary said, or the point that Kevin made. When you do that as a leader, it makes a big difference to the people that you're trying to lead. That
is brilliant. That is absolutely brilliant. Rob, thank you very much. We're coming up on our final conclusion of time here. And time is valuable. I know you've got a full day of work ahead of you. Do you have any other tip that I maybe didn't ask you about, or anything like that that you would like to share with the audience before you go?
David, is my screen okay right now? Because there's a message across the top. Can you see me okay?
Absolutely.
Okay. The last tidbit I would leave is when I was coaching basketball, I read somewhere that a coach was asked, hey, and he was a very successful college coach, extremely well-known name. And they asked him, have you liked all the kids that you have coached throughout the years? He said, heck no. Heck no, I haven't liked them all. He said, but I've loved them all. I've loved them all. So as a leader, that's tough, man. That's tough. But I think if we can find a way to see them as people, and find a way to have a place in our heart for them, that during those times when they're unlikable, or during those times when they find us unlikable, that the love that we've demonstrated for each other, that we really care about each other, and that their future is important to me, whether their future is here or their future is somewhere else, that I'm trying to make this time with them valuable. And they're trying to do the same thing for me. I think if we get to that point of real concern for each other, that will carry us through the times where we have trouble liking each other. So if we can find a way to love the people we work with, it may sound a little dramatic, but I do believe in that.
That is fantastic, Rob. It starts with that, because if we as leaders enter a leadership relationship without any care or love for the people that are ultimately that we serve, because that's our role. It's an upside down pyramid. We serve the people that are on top of our shoulders, you know, when we're leading others. And if we don't start with that love, nothing else matters. Because if people don't know that we care, why should they, right? So Rob, thank you so much.
David.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I just was going to piggyback on what you just said, and that's probably the thing we ought to take from this call, and that is people will care how much you know as soon as they know how much you care.
Amen to that, my friend. Thank you so much, and we'll chat again soon. Appreciate you, Rob.